morning. Welcome to our Data AI to Everything platform. I'm Carol here from Sunset Learning Institute. Today I'm with Arturo Hamilton. He is a multi-cloud solutions architect and cybersecurity officer that has more than 18 years in the IT field. Where I'm going to be quick today because we just have 1 hour for all of this content. Please, when you can join us and reply our poll, I will launch it here now and probably during our session too. Thank you so much, and I hope you all enjoy our session.
Thank you, Carol. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the session. As Carol mentioned, my name is Arturo Hamilton. I'll be with you today in this session. We have a couple of polls running on right now in the screen. So if you can take a couple of minutes to answer, we have 5 minutes for them to be complete. So whenever you join, please help us with that. So again, thank you for joining today. Today we're going to talk about the data to everything platform, basically Splunk. I know that this is a hot topic these days based on cybersecurity and all the Cisco acquisition and stuff. So yeah, Splunk is it's a big deal in the market today. And the idea of the class or the session today is to know about Splunk, to understand what is a Splunk about, what can we do with it, and the things that we usually get from using Splunk. That's the idea. Okay, so let's get started here with a little bit of an overview so we understand what is it, because I don't know you folks, but the first time I hear about Splunk, and maybe the next few years after I heard about this thing existing, I was under the impression that it was completely based in security, right? Like everything about security and Splunk being the big gun for cybersecurity threat protection and stuff. So yeah, I was under the impression that Splunk used to be just a security tool. But guess what? We need to talk about data more than actual security for Splunk today. And all of you know, based on the in your business as usual, right? The amount of information we use as a company, as an organization, is enormous. Even for small companies with less than 50 employees, or to worldwide companies like yours, having like hundreds of thousands of terabytes of data generated every day, every week, it's something common. We have information coming from everywhere, right? We have some examples here like business apps, warehousing, data warehousing, networking, customization, customer stream experience, etc. Why is this so important? Because all that information that we have needs to be used somehow, or needs to have a meaning for the company and the organization to actually have that benefit from it, right? That's what we want to do with the data. That's where Splunk comes in mind. That's when we start considering Splunk a tool that we can use for that. The objective of Splunk today, folks, is to turn real-time information into action. That is not easy. That is a complicated approach that we'll have to deal with, right? Think about just the poll that we just ran at the beginning of the session. We have information coming from you. Now extrapolate that to the number of customers, users, and real-time accesses that you may have in your company. Think about what will you do with that poll results, right? Like, okay, now that I have information, what am I supposed to do? I need to take an action based on that. Where am I saving that information? What am I doing with that information? Where am I putting that information? That's the challenge today. We have so many ways of getting information today that the organization will usually struggle to answer those questions based on that type of data they collected. This is a real deal. This is the real deal of the world today. Is my information safe? Is my information performing the way I want it? How am I actually getting that information? What am I doing with that information? Where am I putting that? How do I use that? I've worked as an independent consultant for more than 10 years now, and I know that most of the companies won't know what to do with the information they have. We need to answer that. We need to do something about that. So the idea is that we have that type of solution, we have that type of application that will let you have investigation, monitoring, analysis, and action based on that, and cycle back. Do it as many times as needed to make sense of that content, of that data. That's what we want to do. And that, my friends, is where Splunk comes to mind. Is the data to everything platform. This is just the introduction, as I wanted to explain when we started. Like, hey, I know that you may hear Splunk and you may think, hey, we're talking about security, right? We're talking about cybersecurity. No, Splunk, folks, is about that way of managing the information. That's what we need to understand today. And that's the objective of this session of the day, to understand all the capacity of Splunk. What can you do as Cisco, as a company, to actually get a leverage from your data, right? So now that we know that Splunk is not only about security, it's important we see the different objects and offerings given by Splunk for you to actually do something about that management. It's important we know that we can investigate, we can take actions in real time, we can analyze ourselves or automatically using artificial intelligence, we can actually have management of that data, and it can apply to any type of approach that your business requires. That's the idea of Splunk. We have a pretty amazing portfolio. As you can see here, we have a lot of things actually available in Splunk. We have products and we have solutions, right? We have, for example, I'm going to grab just one from here. We have Splunk IT Service Intelligence. We can actually monitor how the IT department performs overall the complete company or the whole organization. We have something called Phantom. We will discuss about that. That's an amazing name for a product. And then we go below, right, to the actual data sources. Take a look at the bottom of this screen. We have the ingestion of information. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was teaching an advanced class of Splunk for an Argentinian company, and one of the attendees was mentioning that they were using Cisco services to ingest data into Splunk, and they were generating more than 2 terabytes per hour. So we're talking about a lot of information by the end of the week. Well, all that information actually benefits from this portfolio we have on screen. Okay, but this won't be possible without the cloud revolution. We're going to talk about this in detail in the next minutes. Don't worry, we'll be back to each of these products, but it's important we understand that the cloud revolution is what made Splunk such a useful tool today. You have a cloud solution in Splunk, the Splunk cloud that we will discuss, to control everything, to handle all those products and solutions available from Splunk for you to make sense of your data, right? That's what we want here. So Splunk Cloud, folks, it's one of the solutions we use to interact with Splunk. Think about it like the interface between you and the actual list of products we saw on the map. A Splunk Cloud is the one you, my friends, will use to actually talk to Splunk, to guide it, to process, and to learn from it. Splunk Cloud is actually a service solution that you use, as the name suggests, from a cloud product, from a cloud service. And from there, you work with all the data that you manage, you investigate, you take actions, you automate your report, and you actually learn something from your information. One of the benefits of Splunk Cloud, and that's like a relevant part here, is that everything we have, like a first-hand offering from cloud, is actually under compliance of all the major, let's say, regulatory baselines that we have in the United States government and worldwide scenarios. For example, GDPR for the European Union, for example, Latin American data management approach. So this specific point in the presentation is about you knowing that whatever you decide to do with Splunk, however you decide to use it, okay, you know that you have a baseline compliance for all of it. Are you handling private information? Don't worry. The way you save it, the way you store it will actually be compliant to the FedRAMP, for example, or for the ISO 27000 for the security management. So the idea of using Splunk before we actually start deciding what's the best approach for each of us as organization members is to know that everything is compliant, right? Now, we have a pretty, let's say, enhanced option where the ecosystem of Splunk is actually fed and ingests feedback from different users. This doesn't mean that your information will be used as feedback or that you will have to participate in polls every single day to make Splunk better. No. But what I'm saying here is that the cloud Splunk, the Splunk cloud that we use today for the management, has access to the community and ecosystem. This means that if you have, for example, hey, just an example, one of my trainees a couple of weeks ago, she wanted to create a report to see how the reports were consumed. So a report for reports. She was like, I need to know from all the reports I created, who's accessing those reports and how often. I want to see how my reports are being consumed. So she needed a report of the reports, right? So she was like, "Can I do that?" And I was like, "Yes, you can actually." I built a query with her, and we were like running a query to see a table. And she was like, "What if I want this to be, for example, on a dashboard?" And using the community on the Splunk cloud, she was capable of actually accessing and like reading the information. She was capable of like, "Hey, this looks like a pre-configured dashboard by someone else in the community who actually made it public. Now I can feed my dashboard query into that, and I'll be able to see how my reports are being used." These numbers you have on screen are all those users, sources, organizations, applications that are publicly available for you as a Splunk user to improve the way you interact with it. This is just for you to know that we are not alone. Okay, you don't have to actually go directly to Splunk and say, "Hey guys, how do I do that?" No, we know the community has our backs. Okay, that's the intention of this specific slide, like to understand how Splunk offers that option. Another of the huge benefits we have today is the multi-platform availability. If I execute a report today, take a look on the right image here. It's a real photography, right? It's a picture. Well, it's using actually like some image recognition to report back and to send an alert, you see? The benefit of Splunk today, folks, as I said, being powered by cloud solutions, is that wherever you are, whatever device you have access to, as long as you have a connection, can actually be used to read information. Just a few months ago, there was a major, like, let's say, inspirational announcement about creating or offering an option to build small dashboards like the one we have in the middle for small screen devices like smartwatches. So something like what you see there, like number of alerts in milliseconds connectivity request, the 41, it's what you're getting on a small dashboard, a visual dashboard that you can actually see while you're jogging, while you're, I don't know, whatever you're doing, you just have to look at your watch and you have the report. What I'm saying here, folks, is that we have a lot of power today to offer that end user experience. This is a Splunk Cloud. Okay, we all have access to it, from a regular user to a power user to an actual administrator. The Splunk Cloud is there for everyone to interact. That's the idea of Splunk Cloud. That's the first one we have. The second thing we have here, folks, and this is what actually most of us will think about Splunk the first time we hear the name, is the security approach, right? The security operations suite of Splunk, folks, it's pretty powerful. And obviously, I mean, if that's like the cut of what we do, it's obvious that Splunk will focus on security, right? Well, we have today the opportunity of using a security operations center completely based on Splunk. The modern security operations center, the modern SOC, is the approach that we all, as cybersecurity engineers or participants or whatever cybersecurity approach we have, it's the main goal to centralize, right? To actually have that capacity and that peace of mind of knowing that the security is in place. So Splunk has evolved to let you, the end user, to let your organization, to let whoever embraces a Splunk, that way of shifting the way we work and into a modern approach, into a modern IT scenario. For example, in the past, we needed to be aware of the situation to actually take an action, right? Like, okay, I know that I have private information with customer accounts and some contact information of my users. That specific database should be protected. And I know that most of the attacks will go after that, right? That's situational awareness, because we know that based on the context of that data storage, we may have an actual security breach, or it will more probable to have an attack there than in a standard database. That's the situational awareness. But today, folks, with Splunk, we can take decisions even before the situation presents to ourselves. For example, Splunk is capable today of analyzing the type of content you have, and based on it, based on whatever you have, like information tables, raw information, structured information, suggest to you the way that you should approach the security scenario. For example, encryption, for example, data masking, for example, redundancy. Again, we know about the database with the customer data, but what about the rest of the information? Okay, we might not actually think that it's possible to have an attack on that. Well, that's where the analysis and decision making comes. Today, folks, we all know that monitoring is important, right? How many of you in your organization, I know it's a pretty huge organization, but or with your coworkers or in previous jobs you had or with customers, how many of you have seen those monitoring centers that we usually see on the IT departments, right? I was working in a bank in Leeds for more than 10 years, and I remember having all around the IT office monitors presenting real-time numbers, connections, availability of services, etc. That's a monitoring center, right? I mean, that's common. But what about the decision making on that based on that monitor? Like you actually watch the screen having an issue, and what will you do? The screen will be showing something red, right? Like, hey, error. But what will you do? That monitor is useless for you. You have to take an action somewhere else. The idea today is that using this center of operations, like we saw and we mentioned here, this operation center is actually taking that command from the monitoring itself. That nerve center, think about it like the main brain of your system security. Legacy. How many times you have taken the decision? How many times you as a human or someone of your coworkers or someone at the organization said, hey, let's do this. Let's create this query and let's run this report every 30 minutes to monitor security. I'm not saying that's wrong. No. But today, with so many terabytes of information coming through every day, every hour, every minute, it's, let's be honest, it's impossible for you to analyze that, right? I mean, you might complete the analysis of a terabyte in a week, and you have another 20 terabytes to go through. Today, folks, that human authored security comes on the top of machine learning. With Splunk, folks, we know that we have a pretty powerful machine learning solution to actually say, hey, from those 5 terabytes you got, it seems that this couple of IPs in this computer might be having some erratic behavior, something that will have taken you maybe, I don't know, a couple of days to figure out. That's when you as a human take the action. Okay, I'll create a monitoring target for those computers, for those IPs. You combine now the computer with the human decision. And as I said, human speed against machine speed, right? How much time will it take you to read a report? You, the report. That's one thing. How much time will it take you to build that report? To manually put the information, right? So we let the machine do that, and we just consume the end report. That's the idea of Splunk. That's how we shift the operation center to be a modern approach, to have it today powered by Splunk. So everything goes around the nerve center. As I said, the central brain of operations. You can actually see we actually have a brain in the middle of this image, right? That's our SIEM and our SOAR. Our SIEM being the security of information event management, and the SOAR being the security orchestration automated response. To keep it simple and in plain words to make it easier for everyone to understand, is the monitoring of the events and the response to those events. That's it. SIEM is the information and event monitoring. SOAR is the orchestration and action for those events. Let's keep it easy, okay? Now, in that nerve center that we have on screen here, that it's right in the middle, everything else will take place, right? I mean, some of you might be actually from a security department. Some of you might be from an operations department. Yeah, it might be different for each of you. But we all know that we have somehow to monitor everything. If we have today people from marketing, from sales, from IT, let's say from the field operations, all of you will ingest and create data somehow, right? You might connect from your mobile using an open Wi-Fi. Some of you may actually have a VPN to connect on your computer from work or a personal computer. Some of you may actually be like sitting on a smart device, let's say, I don't know, like a smart TV and connecting via browser to read a report. Why am I mentioning these scenarios? Because all those things are different endpoints that we have to protect. Well, don't worry. The idea of having that nerve center that I mentioned before, it's to centralize all that. Okay? I'll keep an eye on your mobile, on your computer, on your work computer, or the smart device you use to access. It doesn't matter where you are. That's the idea here, that we don't have to worry about configuring each of those endpoints to be monitored. No, Splunk will do that automatically. That's what we want to do here. And all of this, folks, comes from the security operations suite. Splunk offers, let me just go here. Splunk offers that complete framework of security that you can use to monitor, to learn from it, and to take actions. Okay, all this comes from the different type of products and services that we use, or that we can actually use in Splunk. We have the enterprise security, that is the monitoring option we have. We human beings actually monitoring and running queries and creating reports with the enterprise security for all the data. But we also have the behavior analytics. That's a machine learning solution of Splunk that will consume everything that we put in it to actually determine possible erratic scenarios, possible issues, or actual threats. So take a look on the first two. You can actually see a plus symbol in the middle. This means that we, administrators, enterprise organization administrators, plus automatic analytic behavior will together, okay, offer that option of, hey, this is not right. That user is doing something wrong. That IP is trying to penetrate my information security breach. So yes, that's the first one. And then to the right, you can see here, we have the phantom, right? To take the actions, to actually execute remediation, to actually do something about those detections or those erratic behaviors we discovered. These three together, folks, this complete approach together is what makes Splunk so powerful for the security approach. Remember, this is about data, okay? Not only about security. This is one of the options we have with the security, okay? So this is the first part we have. Now, the benefit is that Splunk is so well configured and has evolved so much since the beginning of its release and creation that today the option to adapt any type of data generator into Splunk is easier than ever. Take a look on all different tools we have. At the top, we have Cisco, right? And we know why. But we have Fortinet, we have Palo Alto, we have Symantec, we have CrowdStrike, we have Alcalio, we have Carbon, etc. And these are just some examples. What I'm saying is that it doesn't matter where your information comes from, what type of security perimeter you have in place. Splunk, it's completely compatible with those. Internally speaking, Splunk will understand, will translate, and will store to make sense of that information that it's outside. Okay? That's the idea of Splunk here, that we have that adaptive level that we haven't seen before. And one of the best things, as I was mentioning at the beginning, is that we get a lot of community information as feedback. This means that whatever you're doing today in Splunk, it's private. Whatever data you manage today in Splunk, it's yours. You don't have to worry about that being exposed. But you, as a Splunk user, or you as an organization working with Splunk, you have the chance, you have the option of opening Splunk for everyone else to consume information, right, inside of the company, but also to make public some of the content you might have created. Lots of organizations today will announce or will release the searches they create, like standardized searches, so Splunk can actually create some packages for everyone else to use them. Every time you access a Splunk for the first time, I mean, the first time of the day, not the first time in life, but every time you open Splunk, it will update to see if there is something new. If someone created, for example, a playbook being a workflow of actions to take against a threat, like isolate, deconnect, change the password, and block the user, that's a playbook. Okay, if someone makes a new playbook that seems to be like compatible with standard workloads, Splunk will make it available for you, obviously with the authorization of the owner. It will never take your information, don't worry. What I'm saying here is that every single time that something new comes in the market through Splunk will be available for you. If there is a new algorithm to learn about behavior, it will be there for you the moment it's released. This means that you're always up to date, not only about the new threats, because that's actually a basic approach. No, the actual management is what you get. The actual management benefits and updates is what you get from these content updates. Okay, so this is for you to know. Again, as I was talking about at the beginning, like if you have never used Splunk before, this might be what you thought it was, right? All about security. But we have some other tools. So we have seen here, folks, Splunk Cloud, the human interface there we can use to interact with Splunk, and we have seen here the SIEM and the SOAR, right? The nerve center. The next thing we have, and we also saw that in the previous slide, is the enterprise security, the SIEM, the information and event manager. There are a lot of SIEMs in the market, right? I mean, every single cloud provider has its own SIEM. You can actually buy just a SIEM product. But today, SIEM has to evolve to approach the cloud scenario, right? It's not as easy as it was. Like any of you with more than 10 years on the IT field won't let me lie. Having security in the past was easy because you had a perimeter, right? You had a network, a perimeter, and everything was inside of it. The moment cloud came as a thing in the market, that's the moment when the perimeter was useless. Well, not useless, but became like obsolete in some scenarios. And today, that's a reality. So any SIEM that is not capable of like following the cloud approach will actually feel like a failure, like too short to be trusted, if you let me say that. The type of data that we consume today, as I was mentioning, it's based on how we access that information. How do you access today to most of your information? Through your mobile, right? So if you don't have a way of securing or monitoring those devices, we're done. If you don't have legacy SIEMs, might have that issue, or even some cloud SIEMs today might have that issue, where the connectivity to pull information, let's say from an endpoint, it's not as easy as you might think. Like, hey, I want to pull information from that firewall to see the penetration attempts. Okay, in Splunk you can do it with 2 clicks. Some SIEMs might actually take more than that. Some SIEMs might even require you to have dedicated hardware for that. A server in the middle to translate for the firewall to the SIEM. That doesn't happen in Splunk. The investigation. I'm going to use that example not to compare, but I was last week on Friday, I was taking a Microsoft Azure Sentinel, that it's the SIEM of Azure, it's like a challenge that Microsoft offers to the trainers, and I was like testing the time that it took to complete an investigation from a like 2-3 terabytes of data. It's not slow, but trust me, Splunk is faster. I'm not trying to badmouth Sentinel. I love Sentinel. It's one of my favorite tools in security. But Splunk is the fastest one I've seen for huge amount of data. And I'm not saying that one was slow. I'm saying Splunk is faster. So that's not a problem with cloud SIEMs like Sentinel, like CloudTrial from AWS or Splunk. But there are some SIEM tools that you might install that might actually feel slow. You might be waiting there for something to happen and you see the screen without updating. That's a slow investigation. Okay. The scalability, folks. How many times you have realized that your hardware is not powerful enough anymore? Like, hey, we need to increase the size of this server so we can host the data. The benefit of Splunk being hosted now by Splunk Cloud is that we can scale out the moment we need. We need twice the size of the database. You got it. Click, 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 deployment, 10 minutes later, you have twice the size. It's not going to become unstable because of that. It's just available for you. There are some SIEMs without updates today. As I said on the previous slide here, we get all the updates. We get all the changes that take place available immediately. We know what's happening with Splunk and what's to come. And the best of all is the transparency. I think that's one of the best approaches of Splunk. The capacity of using everything that you have. From the server configuration to the connectivity issues to anything that takes place, it's available for you. You don't actually have to worry about not knowing something and waiting for Splunk to give you an answer, or in this case, Cisco to say, hey, this was the issue. You can do it yourself. All this is hosted on the enterprise security. That's a real screenshot of it. You can see we have an extreme risk on this screenshot. So what is this, folks? What is the enterprise security? This is our event manager. This is where we see what's happening in real time. This is where we monitor whatever thing that took place in your environment connected to Splunk. This one is powered by all the capacity of machine learning and artificial intelligence. That's one of the benefits of it. We're going to talk about that at the end in a couple of minutes. But the enterprise security, folks, today, it's think about this like the main tool you'll use, okay, through Splunk Cloud to actually keep an eye on your systems. This looks like something familiar, right? Something that you will see on those monitors I mentioned on an IT department, on the office. Well, you can monitor everything here. The benefit of the enterprise security of Splunk is that it has that approach of automated monitoring and solution, plus the option of you as a human actually doing something with it. Some functions that we have, real-time monitoring, as we saw here on the previous screen. You can see there the risks. You can see in real time how many unique destinations you have, how many systems you might got infected. You can see there the activity of users and email accounts. This is real-time monitoring for you to keep an eye. But as we said before, today is not only about monitoring, it's about actually making sense of that to take decisions, right? So we have detection and investigation together. Even if you miss the report, maybe no one was watching the monitor, right? No one realized there was an extreme alert in here. We can see that on the right of the screenshot. No one saw that extreme red word in large capital letters, maybe, well, in this case, no. And you don't know something is happening. Don't worry. Even though you might not take the human action, we know that the analytics of the SIEM will detect and decide. You can take the decision, yes, but Splunk can also trigger playbooks, trigger automated responses. The idea of this is that, hey, you can actually keep an eye on the monitor, but you don't have to worry about missing something because Splunk will take care of that. Okay, and obviously you'll have a post-mortem, a complete adaptation suggestion, adaptation list of recommendations. I was saying this with a customer a couple of weeks ago. They created like 30, 40 computers in cloud using different providers, and they started ingesting all the data to Splunk to see where the computers were safer, like in which regions of the world will be safer for them to have the computers running. At the end of the period that they took to monitor, maybe like 6 months, I think, 2 weeks ago, they took the decisions of adapting their production environments to those regions where the data was safer, where penetration attempts, where brute force attacks were less common. They did it. Like after 6 months monitoring directly to Splunk, the same Splunk solution said, hey, these regions and these regions in this product and that product are the safer based on what I saw the last half year. That's the idea of the SIEM, folks. That's a real example. Okay? So up to this point, folks, remember we have the chat open. If you have questions, let me know in the chat. If you want to ask anything about what we have discussed, we still have a few more topics to go before we wrap up, but I just want to make sure that you are following along with the content. And again, any questions you have, be my guest. I will be more than glad to answer your questions. Okay. So up to this point, folks, this is a big picture of Splunk, like the things we can do, the products that we have, like the best approach of understanding Splunk. As you can see, and you can see at the bottom right of the screen, it's all about using the data. Now you know that Splunk is not only security. Splunk is not only like a cybersecurity tool. It's powerful for that, but it's all about knowing how to use our data. Okay, let's talk about a few use cases, a few scenarios here. What's to come? The relevance of Cisco being a major player now in the Splunk panorama, and to wrap up the session. Okay, so couple of use cases we have with Splunk. For example, compliance. I was mentioning that by default, Splunk will offer baselines for worldwide regulations, right? I mean, if you put a database today in the European Union, you know you have to comply to GDPR, right? The Global Data Protection Rules of the European Union. And you know that private data, contact data, health-related information has to be secured. We all know that, right? The cybersecurity approach to data, it's enormous today. Well, Splunk, folks, has a data catalog for you to compare and to analyze your information and determine what should actually be protected. Think about this like a small monitoring agent that will say, hey, this looks like a mobile number. This looks like an email account. This looks like an address. This looks like a Swift number, a Swift code for bank accountings. This is an email. Splunk will let you have that automated analysis for you to know what could be at risk. All this can be done in real time. If you upload a flat file today, let's say that you export a CSV from a SQL database you had on premises, and you upload that into Splunk, you can run this type of analysis and have it immediately. Well, the time that it takes to analyze, but it's real time. If you keep ingesting new records to that table, to that index, Splunk will take care of that and will say, hey, I just saw that you have some content that is related to healthcare terms. You have terminology of healthcare in that file. You should do something. In real time, folks, that's the compliance of Splunk. Not only your data is compliant, your information is compliant to those rules. The data that you host from your customers can also be contrast against compliance. That's one of the main tools we have. The monitoring we already discussed, real time. Even though you have that visual aid with a report like the one we have here on the top right, you also have, remember, the continuous monitoring of Splunk to take decisions, right? To automatically take an action in case of an issue. That's a pretty important thing because having a report, it's one thing. Having a dashboard, it's one thing. But actually doing something about that in real time, it's a complete different story. We have a 24/7 service running if we need to. You don't have to sit 24/7 in front of that monitor to see what's happening. So that's something we discuss on the SIEM and the enterprise security. We have something called the advanced threat detection. This one is completely based on behavior. Think about this as a real scenario. You have a user that works 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, from computer A and B, a laptop and a desktop. And then after 6 months, it looks like the user is connecting from a new device, a third device, on a Saturday night. Something is wrong. If I've been seeing that user behave like this, I immediately have a trigger alert. And in advance, I will take an action. I can report, I can alert, or I can even block that device or that user. That type of detection, folks, might take you as a human a little bit more than a few minutes, right? So the advanced threat detection, folks, will contrast the expected behavior. I'm not going to say regular because it might not be regular, but the expected behavior against a possible erratic scenario. You have an indicator that says, hey, this looks to be compromised. I'm going to give you a real example. Like in May, I think, I had to travel to teach a class on site in Brazil. So when I was flying back from Brazil, I dropped my phone on the airport. But I had to take my flight, so I was like, it will be cheaper to have a new mobile than actually getting another flight and staying today at a hotel. So I was like, okay, my device is gone. I lost for good. And a couple of days later, I started receiving alerts on the Splunk dashboard saying that my device was trying to connect again. But it was in a country in Africa called Laos. So I was like, I never been there. I'm actually not there right now. So immediately the threat detection was like, hey, Arturo is not supposed to be there and at the same time being in the United States connecting, right? Something is wrong, and automatically block my device and my user. I have to use a break the glass account. So that's an example. It's a threat detection based on analysis, on monitoring. And then you have the forensics, the one we have on the right. Okay, why is Arturo device trying to log in from a country we haven't seen him before? Is that him? And then I'll get all the information related to those attempts, like the IP of the connection was trying to use, the applications that were used, everything that we can get. Those incidents will give you insights. And you'll be able to take decisions in the future or to prepare in the future for cases like that. Another example here is that Splunk is capable of fitting of software as a service solutions, such as Microsoft 365, such as operative suites like SAP, like SAP. So if you have that kind of software as a service solution in your organization, in your company, all those can connect to feed information and say, hey, this is the way they behave for detection and for advanced forensics. That's the power of Splunk in this case. And then we have, as we said, the response and the automation. Since we don't have to do it manually, we don't have to use human cycles to process the data. We know that Splunk will take care of that, right? Immediately. We have something called the investigation workbench. That it's a tool that Splunk uses to pull those incidents that look a little bit more suspicious than the others. Like, okay, I have all these accesses from Monday to Friday. I have that access from Saturday. Let's pull that one to the workbench and let's deep dive into it. You as a user will get that notification. Hey, take a look on this. Check what's happening on that access, while I, Splunk, take care of the whole advanced deep dive investigation. Once you get something or Splunk gets something, you can actually take the action. That workbench folds will help you to filter and focus on what might be most threatening to your company than the rest of the activities. That's a good thing because you might be thinking like, okay, but Splunk will take hours to process thousands of events and might not actually focus on those that are more relevant. No, it will. Automatically, it will do it. Okay? So that's part of the response. And then, as we mentioned, the operation center automation. As we said, it's not about monitoring anymore. It's about having that central point of work, that brain central nerve system where we can actually take all the operations that might be required, right? So again, it's all about optimizing the way we relate to the data, okay? With Splunk, folks, as we said, we're almost done here. We have a few more minutes to go, but with Splunk, folks, what we're doing is transforming our data into outcomes, okay? I don't know if you have dealt with this in the past, with customers, with previous works at the company today, but how many times you may have seen storing information just in case and then doing nothing about it or doing nothing with it. Today, folks, we have that capacity with Splunk. Grab the data and turn it into an outcome. Take a decision based on that. The data is the centerpiece of everything, right? If we know what we have, and if we understand what we have, we're capable of investigating faster, reducing the negative impacts, lowering the risks, and improving, obviously, the way we work, right? So that's the idea of a Splunk, folks. That's what we need to get. We have a lot of worldwide recognition. I mean, you may have seen this before whenever you search anything cybersecurity related, but it's important we know that we have recognition at industry levels with Splunk and by end users. I'll say it just like it is, that the favorite SIEM solution in the world today is a Splunk. Again, I'm not like bad mouthing or comparing to others, but I'm saying that it's the favorite one. It's the most common one used by large organizations. Take a look on some of the pictures we have here, some of the icons you see here. We have governmental solutions. We have retail. You see, we have Amazon, Coca-Cola, Tesco. We have on technology, we have Adobe, we have HP. Lots and lots of companies are using Splunk today. Okay, so that will give you an idea on how powerful and how well adapted this solution is, right? Intel, for example, Intel has been working with Splunk even before the acquisition by Cisco. Intel was like getting a lot of power from Splunk and feeding the solution services with hardware dedicated for the advanced processing and advanced capabilities. We have Intel using Splunk services powered by them to actually improve the way they work. That's a real scenario. That's like something from one of the largest customers of Splunk today. And as you know, the Splunk you love is now even better. And I think that's part of the core of this discussion today, right? The idea of this merge, the idea of this acquisition of Splunk, it's to power up the security approach that we already have in Cisco. I know the future of security hasn't been brighter in the past. I think this is one of the best news we can have as cybersecurity users. I've been in cybersecurity for a long time now, and when I knew this was happening, and now I had the chance of talking to you about it, I was really excited because I know this will change the game. This will completely transform the way we work. Together, this is a phrase from one of the former cybersecurity architects at Splunk, and they were mentioning that the way Cisco today handles the networking and endpoint management with the power up of security and observability of Splunk will make this amazing. Will make one of the best solutions we have seen in the market in history. So today, folks, with that merge, we're gonna have we have, for example, a change on the efficacy, okay? The efficiency that we have and the way we work, the economics for defending against threats has been changing since the acquisition happened. I mean, before that, but now powered by Cisco, okay? We have the most comprehensive full stack solution today, enhancing that customer experience they already had with Cisco, but now with the digital experience of Splunk, the cybersecurity experience of Splunk. The combination of both will connect more business than ever, right? Because the visibility is completely transparent with this combination today. Again, as I said a few minutes ago, it's one of the easy solutions to configure. Splunk, it's pretty easy to configure with any source. But today, they being the same solution environment will be faster than ever. Okay. And something that, I mean, this is just like a sneak peek of what's to come, the AI revolution. We know AI is the hot topic of 2024, right? Well, the most valuable, capable AI tools that we have seen in the market are today being used for cybersecurity management, as we know. Well, Splunk has dedicated a lot of resources to improve the way they learn through AI. And Cisco was already doing that. So today, the most valuable AI training model for cybersecurity will be the combination of both. What we had for the endpoint protection, what we had for the endpoint management, plus what we have already in Splunk. Think about that. Think about that power. There is something I would like to share here, folks. Let me just give me 1 minute because this is the final slide, but I want to share a link with you that you might find useful. Let me see if it's still available here. I'll get it for you. Let me see. I'll paste it on the chat in a minute. Okay, so you can have access to it. Let me just get it here. So all this merging process, folks, all this experience that we will have the chance of testing with our own hands now with the whole and full merging of both will actually let you, the Cisco user, will let your customers to improve the already secure environment they had via Cisco with all the Splunk features we discussed today. Take a look at this one. This is the one I was mentioning, folks. I'm going to share the link in a minute, but you can register here. Okay. You can select the country and you'll be able to see all those advanced benefits directly from Cisco. Okay. This is it's not a webinar actually. This is more like a TED talk about this merging process from a Cisco point of view that I think you might find useful. So I'm going to paste that on the chat just in case you want to play around with that. And at the end of the day, folks, what I want you to take from this 55 minutes we had is that Splunk is there for your data, now powered by Cisco, and merged together to offer the best solution for cybersecurity and device management that we have seen in history. So that's the cut of this discussion, folks, and that's what we have for today. I really appreciate you were here with us today, folks. That was a pretty packed 50 minutes discussion about the benefits and basic capabilities of Splunk and what's to come. Remember that here in Sunset, we also have uh, a few other things you can use to learn about cybersecurity. We have a lot of webinars. I think Carol is going to talk about that.
Yes, thank you, Arturo, for your session. Thank you all for joining us. So, as you all know, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and here in Sunset, we have a lot of good things for you. So we'll have some webinars focused on cybersecurity and latest trends and best practices. You can test your knowledge with our cybersecurity quiz, and you have a chance to win an Amazon gift card. And also, we do have our cybersecurity giveaway this month. In the next slide, you will see that we are, if you change for me, Arturo, for the next slide, we are doing a giveaway this month. So you can sign up anytime in the month of October, and you will have a chance to win a free Cisco Security Digital course of your choice. You need just to enroll here. I will pass the URL, and you will be participating on this promotion. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope to see you in the next webinars that we will have during this month.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.
If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.